welcome to my kitchen. Please like, share, and subscribe. Today we're going to make tomato salsa. In fact, it's going to be very similar to paste tomato salsa. To get started, we need 18 pounds of tomatoes, chopped. And you actually do have choices here. You could blanch and peel your tomatoes. And if you don't know what that means, blanching, you basically get a pot of water and you boil it and you drop your tomatoes in there long enough that they start to peel. And then you pull them out, you take the peel off. But I rarely ever do that. I usually find ways to work around that. And I'll show you how I'm going to do it today. Now make sure you washed your tomatoes. That's very important. Now if you're going to blanch and peel them, the peel's going to come off, so it's not quite as important. But tomatoes and other crops, they're sprayed with a wax and they're sprayed with pesticides. And so we definitely want to clean our produce to get all that off, along with any other contaminants that might be on there. And I'm using Roma tomatoes. I just looked for whatever was on sale, and I happen to really like Roma tomatoes. I think they have a lot of flavor. Make sure we get any blemishes off. And all of my tomato scraps are going in the compost bowl. We're going to have some great compost come this spring for our fruit trees and our garden. I'm just slicing them lengthwise and then slicing them again, and that gets it to be relatively small sized. There's nothing like homemade salsa. I like everything homemade, and the reason for that is the commercial brands you buy have a lot more sodium in them, and they have preservatives. And the preservatives really aren't necessary in the canning process. And so something else that I'm going to do differently today, you could process in a water bath canner, but I prefer to use my pressure canner for almost everything that I can. Exceptions are you cannot pressure cook jam or jelly because it'll destroy the pectin. You can't pressure cook apple pie filling or other fruit fillings. You can't pressure cook pickles or relishes. But salsa, you can pressure cook without any problems. So what that saves you from having to sterilize your jars with a water bath. All you have to do is wash them with soapy water. And the other thing I like about pressure canning is you don't have a huge pot of boiling water. So I only water bath when I have to. All right, that's 4 cups. I thought about cutting this recipe in half, but then I thought I might as well get the maximum use out of my pressure canner. And of course, with the prices of fuel and electricity rising, it's much better to process 16 jars as opposed to 8. But this recipe can be halved. I will include the recipe in the description of the video. Another thing that's really important when you're canning, you can use your own herbs, but it's very important to dehydrate the herbs first. Do not do any canning with fresh herbs. And that includes store-bought fresh herbs. If you're going to use those herbs, be sure they're dehydrated first. 6 cups. cups. Ten cups. $18 cups, that wasn't so bad. That took about 30 minutes. Let's go ahead and add 2 cups of white vinegar. This white vinegar is the primary thing that makes this shelf stable and cannable. We're also going to need 24 ounces of tomato paste. Let's go ahead and give this all a little bit of a stir. And let's turn this up to medium now that we've added our vinegar. All right, next, we're going to want to have 5 cups of chopped green bell peppers or mixed bell peppers. You can use whatever color bell peppers you want to use. I prefer to have a little bit of color, so I'm going to use mixed colors of bell peppers. And we're going to want to take the seeds out of these peppers. Whatever you do, do not increase the amount of bell peppers. That will mess up the acidity of the recipe. Might be easier this way. We got a couple of bad spots we're going to get rid of here. Never can with bad spots. Always remove them. All right, we have our 5 cups of peppers. Let's dump those in. Let's go ahead and give this a stir. The next thing we're going to need is 5 cups of white onions. Let's go ahead and add our onion. Give this a stir. Mix our pot up so all of our vegetables are evenly distributed in our salsa. Can't wait to try this. It's going to be excellent. Right now we're going to do our garlic. I'm saving the peppers for last because we'll need to put our gloves on for that. And we're going to need 16 cloves of garlic. Use exactly the amount of garlic in the recipe. So you don't upset the balance of the acidity. And let's just give our pot a stir. Continuing to blend all of our vegetables together nicely in our salsa. So we're putting our gloves on now for our jalapenos. You can use 4 to 8 large jalapenos, but no more. You can use less if you'd like. And if that's not hot enough for you, you could actually substitute with a pepper that's hotter, such as a habanero. But don't exceed the quantity of peppers. And the seeds actually give the peppers the bulk of its heat, and that's why we're going to take the seeds out. So I guess another thing you could do if you like your salsa really, really hot and you can't increase the amount of peppers is you could just leave the seeds in. That would work too. Post bowl is getting pretty full here. Let's go ahead and give this a stir. Incorporate the last of our vegetables into our pot. Next, we'll be ready to add some seasoning. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the fan on because the peppers got a little airborne, and that can get your sinuses going a little bit. And we are ready to add some seasoning. Oops, a little fast there, pouring this out. So we have a 1/4 cup of dried cilantro. And we're going to need a 1/4 cup of sugar. Paste type salsa is actually sweeter, and there's a reason for that. Now, if you don't want the sugar, don't add it. It won't affect the safety of the product when it's canned. 2 tablespoons of oregano. And this is dried oregano. One. 2. We need 2 tablespoons of cumin. We need 1 tablespoon of coriander. We need a teaspoon of black pepper. I want to see what this tastes like prior to adding salt. I've never actually added salt to fresh salsa. And I've always added salt to canned salsa. But an awful lot of people I know have problems with salt. And the salt will not affect processing the salsa, especially using a pressure canner. But let's just stir this up good, and then let's taste it and see how we're doing for flavor. let you watch me taste it just so you know I'm not faking you out. Kind of smells like chili right now. Mmm. This is actually fabulous. It was a little hot there, so be careful about that, but we're actually going to forego the salt. The next step is we're going to let this come to a boil for 10 minutes, and then we'll be back. Our timer is going off. Let's go ahead and shut this off. Let's turn our vent fan off now. Let's turn our burner off on our pot, and let's go ahead and turn our canning pot on the medium type setting here so we can start warming that water up that's in it. And let's get some gloves and pull our salsa pot to the edge of the stove. I love how you can do that with these grates that are on the stove top. Let's come over to our work surface again. Our salsa simmered at a low boil for 10 minutes. Now we're going to put it in our jars. This looks and smells fabulous. All right, that looks about right. Let's go ahead and get some white vinegar and wipe the rims of our jars. This really helps with the sealing process, ensuring that there's nothing sticky on it. Go ahead and put our lids on our jars. And let's put our rims on our jars. Now we need our canning tongs, and let's go ahead and get these jars in our pressure canner. All right, let's put our lid on our pressure canner. Turn it to medium heat. We want to let this blow steam for 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and give our salsa a try again now that it's not so hot, seeing that I almost burned myself earlier. That was pretty stupid. Let's give it a try. This is really great salsa. We'll be back when our pressure canner is blowing steam. Our pressure canner is blowing steam. Let's go ahead and set our timer for 10 minutes. And we'll be back when 10 minutes are up. Our timer is going off. Let's go ahead and add our rocker. And just a little note on canning safety. I've had this pressure canner for 20 years, and if you look, the gauge is already up. That means my gauge is not reliable. If you're relying on a gauge to tell if you have the right pressure when you're processing your food, be sure to get your gauge calibrated every year at the Cooperative Extension Service. I'm going to be relying on my rocker. When my rocker starts rocking, we'll be back. Our rocker is starting to rock. Let's go ahead and set our timer for 30 minutes. Now I am 2,000 feet above sea level, so I am using a 15-pound rocker, and I'm going to do it for 30 minutes, and we'll be back. Timer's going off. Let's turn this heat off. Now I'm going to let this pressure canner cool for 2 hours before I open the lid, and then I'll put the jars on a towel to cool overnight, and in the morning I will test the seals on the lids. And tonight I'm going to make some Mexican food. My husband's going to love it. I hope you enjoyed making salsa with me today. Thanks for watching.